You are now listening to the Minority Trailblazer Podcast. Season 2, new intro. Let the story begin.
One time for the lovers, 2 times for the ladies, 3 times for the brothers, 4 times for the babies. Do you love her? 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 1 time for the lovers, 2 times for the ladies, 3 times for the brothers, 4 times for the babies. Do you love her? 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 Brown skin, love her brown skin, love her brown. Brown skin, love her brown skin, love her brown. She my brown skin, love her brown skin, love her brown. She my brown skin, love her brown skin. Hold me down, down.
Ooh, I love that intro. I love that intro. Shout out to Locker Shaw, DMV rapper. He's gonna blow up soon, man, for providing that intro. And Dream Out Loud team, the one that gave me the cosign, say you can go ahead and play that. So yeah, I'm excited. We got a new vibe, a new energy. And it's season 2, y'all. Like season 1, like I said, I always will thank y'all at the beginning of each show because it's not possible without listening and tuning in. Guess what? We surpassed over 20,000 downloads. Probably a lot more, but podcast statistics are at over 20,000 downloads season 1. Thank you so much, and LinkedIn family. Woo! Thank y'all, man. Like the last episode, y'all ain't have to do me like that. I'm talking about the post went viral, 25,000 likes, over 1,500 comments. I mean, the outpouring of messages, support for my story, the podcast journey has been phenomenal. I mean, phenomenal. And over a couple days, we had over 4,000 listens on SoundCloud in a couple days due to you LinkedIn fam. So if you're new to this podcast, if you heard about it via LinkedIn, thank you so much. And I got a powerful guest on this show, man. Like season 2, I had to join the wave, the black girl magic wave. Or shall I say black woman magic? I don't know. That's a conversation for another day. But yeah, we about to jump right into it. And shout out to Harriet Tubman, man. Like $20 bill for real? That's crazy, right? Like every time we gonna be on a $20 bill, even though that's a deeper conversation because we don't. Yeah, that's a whole deeper conversation because some conspiracy theorists have these ultimate ideas. But just take it for what it is. Harriet Tubman's on the $20 bill. Shout out to the original OG Minority Trailblazer. So I ain't gonna rap y'all to death. I know y'all here not to listen to me. Y'all listened to me last podcast, but to listen to our new exciting guest. I'm talking about Forbes, Black Enterprise. She is, this girl's on it. I love it. You know, you could tell I've never been this excited to get into it. But I got a couple housekeeping announcements that I want to kind of roll by. First and foremost, please, if you haven't already, go. If you listening to it on iTunes phone right now, please, gotta rate the podcast, man. We got tens of thousands of listeners. We got 78 ratings. Please rate the podcast. And also, if you're listening via SoundCloud, please follow the podcast so you can be updated in each and every new episode coming every Thursday. And this is interviewing some of today's leading people of color. And this season, we even expanding outside of African Americans. I got some Latinas. I got some Chinese. I got a lot of people coming on this podcast and the show. Primarily, I ain't gonna lie, it's gonna be African American. But we expanding our reach. We opening up our doors. We accepting partnerships. We just trying to move and shake. And on that note, there's 2 things I need to ask. Hey, audience out there, I'm asking for your support because I've been approached by a couple big companies to do some sponsorship, run some ads on it, and that will allow me to stop coming out of my pocket to pay for the show, but I don't want to go that route. If any ads I'm going to do, it's going to be ads for the Minority Trailblazer, the summit, and other things that I'm doing, so I really don't want to go that route, so I will need your support. I started a Patreon campaign, and what it really is, it's a platform that you, the audience, the people that listen to, that get all the content, y'all can support the podcast, and I got rewards for people that support. And it's a monthly donation, a monthly investment into the podcast. Like, for instance, if you donate $10 a month, you can get access to a live webinar with me and a past podcast guest every single month where we just ask questions, we talk about life, we hold each other accountable, and this is like a small knit group. And say if you donate $20 a month, you get a copy of my new book, as well as live seminar, you get notes and all this good stuff. So if you're interested in supporting this podcast financially, most importantly, supporting me in this journey, because this podcast takes a lot of time, costs a lot of money for the upkeep, and I want to bring some new things to you this season. Please visit GregEHill.com/MT podcast. Once again, it is GregEHill.com/MT podcast. And I'll have all my past episodes, as well as where you can find out about how to support, as well as the free stuff that comes with your commitment. And since it's my show, I got this last shameless plug. Hey, audience, I know people have been asking, emailing me, tweeting me, Greg, you said you talking about this book you wrote. Like, where is it at? The first book, I only had 100 copies. That's all I created. It sold out in a couple weeks. And that's it. The second book, I am proud to announce. That's what I've been doing since the podcast hasn't been on there. Interviewing new guests and working on my pride and joy. Remember, you're a genius again. And it's coming out May 20th. And today, I am announcing the pre-order link. And for my podcast listeners, I got a deal for y'all. It's going on sale for $20. Podcast people get it for $15. And check this. You also get free access to a webinar I'm doing next month, date to be announced, with a past podcast guest, where you can ask me or the podcast guest any question you want about blogging, podcast, business. And I'm telling you, the guest is going to be really knowledgeable about it. Her show is one of the best shows out there. And yeah, we get a free webinar, ask all your questions you want, and we're actually going to bring that off into a little group where every month we have webinars and whatnot. But yeah, check it out. And for more information and to order the book and find out all the details, go to GregEHill.com/podcast book. Once again, that's GregEHill.com/podcast book. The link will be on the website. And do not share that with anybody else, because I'm not giving anybody else any discounts. That's just for you. Enough of the shameless plugs. I'm ready to get in an episode. I know y'all ready. Are you ready? Let's go. I got an amazing guest on the line. If you're an entrepreneur, a natural hair enthusiast, and if you're waiting on the sidelines of life, just saying like, what is my passion? What should I do? How do I get all this creative energy outside of my head on paper, in the news, blowing up across the world? And if you are a fan of Black Girl Magic, then this is the podcast for you. So let me read a little bit of bio about my guest today. Today's featured guest is a beauty entrepreneur and a hair manufacturing technician who owns and operates a beauty-based company based out of Washington, D.C., which has been featured on Black Enterprise, Bravo, Essence Magazine, to name a few. She began her career in the hair care industry over 10 years ago as a cosmetologist whose area of focus was in natural hair care and hair extensions. She eventually went on to work for hair care industry lead Carol's Daughters, where she further nurtured her love for natural hair. In 2012, she set out to fill a void in the natural hair industry by creating the heat-free hair movement, the first company to manufacture virgin human hair extensions made to seamlessly blend with the different textures of natural hair. Heat-free hair was inspired by the thousands of women that use sew-and weaves as their protective style of choice, but were limited to styles that require them to heat strengthen their hair for the purpose of blending with their styles. This movement is not only now the #1 company for 100% virgin human hairlines exclusively created for natural hair textures, but serves as a community platform for women and connect with an amazing community of natural women. She works for a Washington, D.C. office and hopes to combine her interest in beauty as well as tech, real estate, and business development to expand her brand in the near future. It's my honor and pleasure to introduce the first guest of season 2 of the Minority Trailblazer podcast, Miss Ngozi Opara, CEO and founder of the Heat Free Hair Movement. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I'm so happy to be here. This is exciting because I think what you all are doing is so awesome. So this is awesome.
Man, I'm more excited than you. I've been doing research because I know you, but I really, to give a little backdrop. No, I'm not giving backdrop. We're just going to jump right in quick.
I'm a big quote guy. As anybody that's been keeping up with the podcast, season 1, I'm just filled with quotes on quotes on quotes. And I always ask my guests before we even enter the show, what is their favorite quote and a story to share with how they apply that quote to their everyday life. So, Miss Ngozi.
Oh, yes. I love this question. So my favorite quote comes from a man by the name of Napoleon Hill. And it is that whatever the mind of man can conceive and bring itself to believe, it can achieve. And the story that really connects that for me is, that was really the quote that was motivating me throughout my whole process of developing heat-free hair. There were several moments along the way where I was super discouraged. Um, I wanted to turn around. Things just seemed like they were getting further and further away. And I joined an organization at the time by a man named Kevin Trudeau. It was called the Global Information Network. And this was the first quote that I heard when when I became a part of the group. And I was like, why does everyone get so excited when they hear this? And it's because so many people in that organization really, really listened to what that quote means. And it just speaks to that inner voice that tries to tell you that you can't accomplish something
Mm-hmm.
and really tells you that if you believe you can, then you can. And it's like, if you don't think you can, then you cannot. So
Mm-hmm.
I think that it really speaks to the fact that belief and um, like having that that I guess more so that that confidence in
Mm-hmm.
yourself is so important. And so that's been an amazing one for me. And I continuously post it up on my little affirmation wall every morning. So it's one I always refer to.
Yeah, and to take it a step further, I was reading up on you, and I heard a quote on one of your last blogs, which I wanted to share with the audience, which is so pertinent, like it spoke volumes to me. And you said, "Listen selectively. Stop taking constructive criticism from somebody who hasn't constructed anything." And I
Yeah.
was like, wow, that is like so freaking deep. And if you could, can you share about like what was the motivation behind that? Because I think that is pivotal. Like I know I'm jumping ship, but I read that a couple days ago and I was like, yo, that is freaking deep. I love it.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, everyone is a critic, right? Like everyone has something to say. I think social media, I think just where we are in our times really allows people platforms, which is great, to be able to express themselves, but it also kind of empowers people who really don't have any business talking about things they have no idea, like that they have no experience in, and giving advice on things. And so for me, I have a lot of really smart friends. Like I came from the finance industry before I was working as an entrepreneur,
Mm-hmm.
and just in my family, I come from a very educated family, and so I'm constantly around really smart people.
Mm-hmm.
And so because of that, everyone always had an opinion, and
Uh-huh.
I remember there was a point in time where I was asking one of my friends who was like a senior consultant at one of the biggest firms. I was asking him for like advice about where I was going with heat-free hair, and he literally just like tore me to shreds and was like, "This is stupid. You can't do this. It's horrible. It's this. It's that."
Mm-hmm.
And at the time, I remember being like, "You know what? Even though you are in management or you have the ability to do what to consult or to look objectively at things, I'm like, you've never really constructed anything of your own to be
Mm-hmm.
able to really understand where I'm coming from." And I said that, and he looked at me like I was crazy. And the funniest thing is that, we're still really great friends today. He's an entrepreneur now,
Mm-hmm.
and he's really, he's going through it, but he's doing well. But I know, he recently reached out to me and kind of like thanked me for some of the hard conversations we had, because he never knew what it was like. And so he was just
Mm.
like, "I give you so much credit for what you're doing. Like, this is 10 times tougher than what I was doing before." And so it's just so interesting how people can advise you without coming from a place of experience. They're just coming from, their own theories that they've developed based on what they think they know.
Man, that's really powerful story in itself because I mean, contrary to popular belief, sometimes you have a business idea you read online, they say, well, go to the expert and ask them about it. Like, seek the best advice you can. So you went to one of the top, a guy that worked at probably a top consulting firm, had a lot of experience managing all these types of companies. And he just said, on your idea. And then like fast forward, the idea is blowing up, everything's taking off. And now he has his foot in the same experiment. And it's like, oh man, so that's critical way to think about it, rather than, of course, going to the industry experts, because maybe that industry expert doesn't see your vision completely like you do.
Right. But to your point, though, I do think that there is some benefit to go. I think that there's a huge benefit to going to people who have what you want or who have done something very similar. So some of my advisors or mentors, they are entrepreneurs, and maybe and one of them is even an entrepreneur in the beauty space. And so when she's telling me kind of her story, like, yeah, I listen, I pull and pick and choose what I want to pull from my own experience, but at least with that opinion, it's someone who's literally who's done it before, who's been down the same path as you before, and has not just the brand to prove it, but the whether it's the income earning level that you want to be at, or the brand notoriety, or just being able to accomplish the things that you're striving for. So I think that, like, it just speaks to who do you listen to. And that's another huge thing that we used to focus on in the organization I was talking about, is literally, who do you listen to? Are you listening to people who are just teaching you how to do something but have never done it themselves, or people who have failed, succeeded, and want you to improve on their paths?
Who are you listening to? We ain't even got into the show. We already got a major takeaway, a major key, because that's just, yeah. So you're getting me excited with this conversation. Before we jump into where you are now, I want you, because the first section of our show, and I'm explaining to our new guests, our show usually runs like this. It goes through 3 sections. The first section, we just dig behind kind of the successes of our guests, and we share their natural story. The second part of the show, we showcase where they are today in their business and what they're working on. And the third part, we showcase the future thoughts and the future things they're working on as well. And then at the end, we have our rapid fire round. So if you could take us back, who is Ngozi? You could start from the motherland. Like, who is Ngozi, and kind of educate the people that know you, but also that don't, or new to you, kind of who you are before He Free Hair, before entrepreneurship, before Essence, before all that.
Yeah, I Ngozi Opara, or Ngozi Chukwu Opara, full name.
Own it, yes.
Yes. Full name. I am a first-generation American, proud Nigerian, born in Washington, D.C. to 2 Nigerian immigrant parents. I am the third of 4 children. I'm someone who grew up really shy and somewhat withdrawn from social environments or the world as a whole, honestly. But I'm someone who has always been extremely observant. And I think that in the process of being somewhat of a mute as a kid, but also super, super observant, I became very analytical. And I think it also partially because I'm a Taurus as well. And so I became very analytical. And, I spent a large portion of my life just kind of taking the back seat and observing and analyzing things, from behavioral patterns to trends to culture, to just body language, to, everything. Sometimes I would just like space out. And, I'm very, very passionate about my family. I'm very passionate about women, and I'm very passionate about business. And it's something that I've observed probably ever since I was 10 years old. I come from a family of entrepreneurs and medical professionals. So I always would kind of observe the two and be like, I want to go on the entrepreneurship route. But I didn't know exactly which way. And so, I spent a long time just trying to find my voice and figure out, how am I going to express myself to the world? And so initially, I found my voice through poetry. And so I spent several years of my life writing poetry and performing poetry, and eventually touring as a spoken word artist and competing as a spoken word artist as well. And it was really through that experience that I gained the confidence to be able to say that, okay, people actually listen to me when I speak. Now, I didn't know that people would actually listen to me when I spoke outside of the stage, and off the stage, but at least the stage helped me increase my confidence. And so, here we are, flash forward to, I don't know, however many years later. I think that my experience as a child, just being an analyzer and super observant, and then someone who wanted to find her voice, really was a catalyst for me to be able to say that this is what I want to do for other people. I want to be able to be a voice for other women. I want to be the one who's kind of, I want to be in a field where I'm analyzing things and I'm able to act accordingly. And so upon graduation from North Carolina A&T State University, I was a financial analyst, and a pretty good one because I was analyzing consistently, but it wasn't creative enough for me. And so I think that artistic side that was so used to the performance factor of poetry, and like I was into fashion and all that fun stuff, being stifled in an industry that is very calculated but not creative, it really made me feel like I got to get out of this. I got to step up. I need to do more. And so I knew entrepreneurship was the goal, but I didn't know what I was going to do. So I literally became like hustle man from the fifth floor, was doing everything and anything just to have my hands in multiple things until something clicked. So that's me.
And I didn't know. I was reading online that in North Carolina A&T, you had your own hair studio. You were doing hair then as well?
Yeah, so while I was at North Carolina A&T,
You did a lot.
I did a lot. I did a lot. I was queen of the university. I was in other pageants as well. I was involved on campus, but I also I was like the hair extension girl on campus. So everyone knew, if you want your hair done, Ngozi and Haley Hall, or when I moved to Barbie
Haley
Hall,
Hall.
yes, or even when I moved off campus, I had administrators, I had deans that would come to my house and and let me do their hair. And then I was working at a salon in North Carolina as well. And so, yeah, that was really where I got my first kind of like teaser experience at entrepreneurship, because it really forced you to kind of get on the grind and market yourself and sell yourself and all this stuff. And this is stuff that I'm like, man, I didn't really realize like how passionate I was until I look back. And I'm like, I was literally cold calling. Like, I'm not into sales right now. Like, I don't know that. I mean, I have it in me, but like, I don't love sales in terms of
Yeah.
like having to sell yourself. But like, I forgot what it was like that I was literally cold calling people and like knocking on doors and passing out flyers and
To do
saying,
hair, it's not like cold
yeah,
calling. You trying to sell cell phone service. You talking about, can I do your hair? Can I put in extensions?
yeah, like, can I do your hair? This is my price list. I got you. You refer 5 friends, and like, this is stuff that textbooks won't teach you this. This was just the on the ground experience that I was getting from literally just being like, I don't want to be broke. Like, I've never wanted to be broke. I've had a job since I was 12 years old. So for me, broke is not an option. And so that's why when I got to college, my mom was like, I'm sorry, you're going to do a nursing program. There's not going to be any time to have a job. You're not working. I was like, oh, sorry, that's not going to work for me. Gotta hustle. So that's where it really started, was like knowing that like I could not have a job in order to keep my relationship with my parents, and then also knowing that like I could not be broke in order to keep my sanity. I was like, I'm going to use my skills, and here we are.
Yeah, and two questions before we kind of fast forward. The first question being, because I know we talked a little bit when we on the panel. North Carolina A&T had like student success panel, and you spoke about, and you mentioned earlier in this podcast that your parents come from higher academia and whatnot. So can you kind of touch about your decision to come to North Carolina A&T real quick?
Yeah, my dad has 5 degrees. My mom is, also.
They come to North America. Yeah.
My dad has 5 degrees, I think. My mom is like 3. Like, I have a lot of Ivy League graduates in my family. And so for me, growing up in an African household or a Nigerian household, it was like you strive for the best or else. So there is no option. Everything is the best. And so it's either you're at the top school or you're not in school, or you're not, or your school doesn't count. Or if you are in a school that's not a top tier school, you've excelled so much that you're there for free or whatever. And so when I decided to go to North Carolina A&T, It's funny because me and my dad are super close now, and I always joke with him about how, my dad did not speak to me for 2 years, like
Whoa.
literally, like that not a word came out of his mouth. And so, um, when I became Miss A&T and I had my coronation and my dad came, that was a huge emotional moment for me, because this is someone who was just like, I don't care what you do after this point because you decided to go to that institution. And so, um, it's funny because no one in my family had ever heard of A&T, and they joke around now. They're like, "Yeah, my daughter was Miss AT&T," and I'm like, "AT&T, the phone company? No." But they're super proud of me now, and I think that, like, if anything, the end justifies the means.
Mhm.
So my parents are just like, "Wow, you paid off your student loans, you're this, you're that. Like, all right, no more peeps out of our mouth. You got it." Yeah.
And then if you could speak real quick, like how did you realize that hair was it? Because I know you spoke about like first finding your voice through poetry, having that confidence. And I know as we can kind of get into it, like hair means so much as for a purpose confidence, is specifically a woman's confidence. So when did you kind of, because I know you have almost a decade plus in experience with hair, but when did you really start not only just, of course you're doing your hair, but doing others' hair? When was that transition?
Yeah, I mean, hair is something I've always done, right? So
Mhm.
I did cosmetology as part of a program in high school. Was doing it on the side in college as like the side hustle, right? But like what I enjoyed about hair was not necessarily the actual like tactical your fingers moving braiding hair. Like it wasn't necessarily that. It was more so the experience, right? So like having a woman in your chair who is open with you, who's telling you her story, who's sharing in your story, you guys are connecting. Like I felt like I thanked hair so much because it allowed me to have that connection. And then, outside of that connection, the aftermath, right? So after you're done someone's hair and they enjoy it, that look on their face, that boost of confidence, that sudden like smirk that they make when they look in the mirror that they didn't have, that little extra pizzazz in their step that they didn't have before they came in, like it makes you as a service provider, it brings joy to the inside of you as well. And so for me, I always felt like hair would be like a constant variable in my life. I didn't know that it would be the denominator. Like I think that switch happened for me when it really just made sense. Like when heat-free hair came about, when the idea for it was formed, um, it was like a light bulb moment that I had, and I got it. I was so excited that I was like, I can't contain it. And I think that excitement for the movement was what really made me realize that this next step was going to be in hair. And I always knew that hair was just a stop on the journey. It's not the final destination,
Mhm.
but at the same time, it's something that I am passionate about, and I'm able to see the immediate result just by the women's lives that I impact.
Man, phenomenal answer. And the last question of the first round is kind of if you could take us to before heat free hair, what was kind of, and I don't want to say the lowest, but what was kind of one of your lowest points before you even went on your entrepreneurship journey? Because I know there's a lot of takeaways in that journey.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, it's so funny because my lowest point was actually what was my biggest motivator. And you know, I'll probably never actually thank this guy for this, but I think that I thank this experience for the turmoil that it caused me, because it literally, like, there's this that says that when your head is so far down, you have no choice but to look up. So like when you're really, really down, you have no choice but to look up. And I was in a relationship that it was just really unhealthy. It was really unhealthy. You know, it 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 just it was something that for the first time in years was able to take me to a place of like of take me to a place of trying to self-destruct.
mhm,
And self-destruct in the sense that, like, prior to that, I was literally on top of the world, in my opinion, queen of our
mhm,
university, doing this, thriving, helping women, empowering women, smart, having all these things happen for me. And I had built up this confidence to the point where I was like, I know who I am. I know what I can be. I know, who God has called me to be. And
mhm.
then you get into something that's supposed to be loving and amazing. And it literally just crushes you. and you start questioning, like, wait, am I who I am? Like, am I who I'm supposed to be? Like, am I who God says I am? And then it doesn't help if that person is like, you're not that, like, you're not, people think you're this, but they have no idea who you really are. You're really this low person, or this bad person. And after a long enough period of time of someone trying to convince you of such negative things, you start to actually believe it. And so I went through a period of time where I literally fell off the map. I don't even think my parents knew where I was, like literally 3 months of just like intense depression. And it really came from a place of like, how did I allow myself to get into such a emotionally abusive relationship? And it's it was embarrassing because I spent so much time, kind of being on top of things and looking at other women and their struggle and thinking, what kind of girl, like, who are you? How do you allow a man to do that? And I never in a million years thought that I would be on the receiving end of that, and looking at myself saying, how did you allow a man to do this? And so, after about 3 months in my funk, and 3 months kind of like just looking like life was just hopeless and all this stuff. And it wasn't like because of like the guy, it was literally just like how I felt about myself. And so I think after about 3 months of that, I was like, there has to be better. And I know that if I was able to do this thus far, I can do so much more. And it's in that period where things look so bad that you just start forcing yourself to think of what life will be like when you are out of this funk. And what I didn't realize at the time that I know now is that as I was thinking about what life would be like out of that funk, I was planting seeds. Like, I was vibrating these positive thoughts that were attracting more positive thoughts and more positive things, until I started actually seeing positive things happen in my life. So it was literally like that lowest point forced me to start thinking about happiness and what that looks like. And slowly but surely, like, I started crawling out of that funk, and ideas just started coming out of nowhere. And literally within about, I don't know, couple of months after that period, that's when the idea for Heat Free Hair was really born. And so I feel like, even though that was a very low point for me, it was so necessary because it taught me that I'm not above anything. Like, I'm a human being who can cry, eat, breathe, sleep, drink, hurt, just like anyone else. And it showed me how powerful positive thinking can be.
Wow, that's a very, thank you for sharing that.
Yeah,
And that's a
no
very
problem.
touching story. It reminds me kind of like Adele when Adele made 21. She had a breakup or she's going through a lot of things, and she went in the studio, banged out 21, and that's now she's Adele. She's a thing. She's a verb. So, yeah. So let's go to the second round, and I'm kind of gonna start it off when we're talking about Heat Free Hair. I'm gonna start off in a juicy segment because when you think about hair and you think about the industry you're in, not embracing, but dealing with scrutiny and competition, because I'm real critical. A lot of entrepreneurs or just a lot of young professionals and a lot of college students need to hear that too, because you're at this point now, you started Heat Free Hair, success is starting to pick up, but in that industry, people are critical about their hair and these movements. And there's a host full of bloggers online that can really make or break you. So can you walk us through, how do you deal with the scrutiny and the pressure of your industry?
Yeah, I deal with the scrutiny and the pressure of my industry by keeping my friends extremely close. And I say that because once you're in an industry um, that's so driven by like popularity and just who knows who and all that stuff, it's so easy to get lost in that and think that other people's opinion of you matters. And um, and when I first started this business, I went through a little moment of hell where I was introducing a new concept to a community that was so close knit. The natural hair community is such a tight knit community. And I'm introducing this new concept, and they're just like, girl, like, who do you think you are? what are you doing? Get out of here. Like it was so unhealthy. And, at first it got to me a little bit. I was like, man, these people don't even know me and they're so mean. And then it just kind of hit me like, I'm sorry. Do I talk to you? Do you have my number? Like, are we friends? Like, it just, I think it just forced me to pull those who I'm close with even closer, and I could be my truest self with them, and they don't judge me. And if they do, it's coming from a place of love. It's not coming from a place of being judgmental. It's just coming from a place of love. Um, and so I just kind of, would let things kind of go in one ear and go out the other. Like I've had people show up to my live events and have the audacity to say certain things. And I'm the kind of person where I don't want, like, I've met a lot of women in not even just Black women, not even just in my industry, but in industries as a whole, in different industries, that feel like in order for you to be a Black woman that's taken seriously and people know not to mess with you, you have to be a bitch. And I'm just not that person. I don't feel like I have to be that person. I can check a person, but at the same time, it's like, where is that going to lead us? And so for me, I think that there's a certain amount of respect that you have to command. There's a certain level of banter that you can entertain. And then when it gets past a certain point, you just have to know who you are and step away from it. So, for me, I've just focused on making customers happy, creating an experience that can impact women's lives, and keeping my friends and family extremely close.
Wow. Can't add anything to that. That's there right there. And I want to take a quick step back because I realized I was reading your story and whatnot, and the actual, when you kind of launched officially out Heat Free Hair movement, it was like around 8 months to a year after the idea happened. And I know I was reading up and you say one of the most pivotal times or one of the most memorable moments of your life was somewhere in China where you had a group of 15 Chinese men at a dinner, and they were manufacturing leads. So I want you to kind of tell people about your story of, all right, you had this idea, and what training did you go through to kind of get to the point to launch the product? Because I don't want people to miss this, because I don't want people to just think, okay, I've been doing it for 10 years. I know hair. I'm just going to launch Heat Free Hair Movement. Can you please expand your journey to kind of really understand what you were doing, the manufacturing process and all that?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, coming from my background, my family background of it's essentially this idea of do it well or don't do it at all. And I missed that a little bit when I launched Heat Free Hair originally. I launched Heat Free Hair while I was still kind of beta testing the product. I was going back and forth with a manufacturer who had no idea what I was asking for. I had to cut out pieces of my hair, my sister's hair, and a client's hair of mine just to have a prototype. And they don't even know what the prototype, they're just confused. And so, when they got something that looked halfway decent, I was like, great, Heat Free Hair, boom, launch. And that was just an epic failure because, I didn't understand manufacturing. I knew hair styling, but I didn't understand hair manufacturing. And there's a difference between live hair on women's heads and dead hair that's been cut off. And so for me, that notion of do it well or don't do it at all was just ringing super loud in my ear. And I just decided to really just step out there and take a leap of faith. And so when I was in China going through manufacturing school, I literally learned everything about hair down to like the molecule. Like it was, down to how to manipulate a fiber, what to look for, how to tell the nationality based on the hair fibers if it has not been altered, how to create certain looks, how to create pattern. I was a part of the development team that was able to create texture. And so for me, learning all of that was super cool. But what was really disturbing was when I was in China, I learned that like there were really no women that were hair technologists. It was just a bunch of men. And a lot of these men were like old enough to be my dad. And so while I'm sitting there working with my factory and I'm learning about technology and I'm creating technology, word spread. Like all the hair factories in China, all the real factories in China are all in one area. So, you know, for the most part, we all know of each other. And so while we're, you know, a lot of like while we had a meeting one day, one of the guys from the other factory was very close with one of the technicians at my factory, and they just called a dinner meeting for all of us to come and have dinner. And it was weird because it's like technically there's a bunch of competition in the room. Like,
Yeah.
like you know, like people were competitors, but there was just this mutual respect for everyone. And like, you know, people specialize in certain things. One person was like a wig maker, the other person specialized in synthetic. There were a few people who were virgin hair manufacturers, but you know, obviously the technology is key. So they keep their technology to themselves and they were able to still have that camaraderie. And so I'm sitting in this room and we're all having dinner. And this old man stands up, and I hate to call him the old man, but that's all I can know. I was like, he was so old. He was like the oldest technologist of all of us in the room. Had to be at least 70 years old. The guy stands up and does like a little like ding, 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 like, you know,
Oh,
essentially
like in the
saying,
movie, he clicked with the fork.
yeah, like he wants to give a toast, and it's he's holding like Qingdao beer in his hand to toast, which is so funny because I'm like, okay, this is not what you toast with, but cool. And so he's about to give a toast, and my translator is like, he's about to toast to you, and I'm like, who? Me? For real? No way. There's no way. And the guy starts talking about how, you know, how inspiring it is to see someone like me, a young black girl. He used the word black girl, young black girl from America, to come to China, to see the culture, to be a part of it, to live with them, to eat with them, to break bread with them, to learn with them, and to collaborate with them. He said that he never thought in his lifetime that he would see such a thing happen. And so they're all like concurring and they're all clapping, and I'm just like, wait, what? Like it took me for a loop, because for me to have these guys who have 20 plus years of manufacturing experience look at someone like myself and say, hey, you know, we respect you, we regard you, we thank you for what you're doing, it blew my mind. So I just started crying. I couldn't take it back. I couldn't hold back. And that was such a powerful moment for me. And it was such a confidence booster as well, because I just, it was like them giving me that assurance that like, you know what you're doing.
I got a quote. It's like this is a new edition. I thought of this today, but it's a segment called "What Would You Do?" thing, and had $1,000 in just a computer. What would you do?
I would use the $1,000 to get a really, really small hair, either space, like a little booth to rent out at existing hair salon, or to rent out like a cheap room in an apartment or something. And I would use the remaining whatever's left of that to start marketing myself online, to use my skills as a hairstylist to grow that.
Boom.
So, yeah.
If you were a college student with ideas but no money, how would you bring your ideas to life?
If I was a college student with ideas but no money, I would find strategic partners, people that may not have the ideas but may have the means for directing me in the right place, or for connecting me to people who can bring my ideas into fruition. So even if those strategic partners aren't going to have money, they may be able to have someone, they may know someone who can do it just based off of their recommendation. And that actually did happen to me.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
If you were a professional that wanted to quit your job but didn't quite know what your passion was, what would you do?
I would keep my job. Anti-broke over here.
Yes, they read some books, go to some conferences, do something like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, just start like don't yeah. That's another here nor there. Because I mean, hopefully a quick side pungent because I never addressed it, but you had over a decade plus experience doing hair, understanding hair, but you still humbled yourself and said, I really need to go all in and go all the way to China for a whole year to really understand even more. So that should show all the entrepreneurs or potential entrepreneurs that whatever craft you're in, don't just think just because you're good at where you're at that that's going to translate into multi-million-dollar business or you're just going to blow up. Sometimes there's always other levels that you have to get to in order to get the results that you want in the most quality way. And I think you showcased that perfectly in that story because you didn't have to go to China. You could have just put out a average or a little bit above average product and been okay. But you said, I'm going to go one step further and do that. And I wanted to address that because I think that's pivotal.
Yeah.
And the last question, what would you do is if you had a business that you were in for like 2 to 3 years, but you were getting no traction, what would you do?
I would go back to my why. I would go back to my why and ask myself, why am I doing this? Is it because I want to make impact, or is it because it's just to make money, or whatever? And if the why is not if you're able to, if the why is that you want to have an impact, and it's not super tied to the specific thing that is your business, then I would start to identify what problems your business are is solving. And if it's not solving any problems, then I would start to identify what problems that are somewhat that relate to your business somehow that you can solve by not expanding, by essentially diversifying what it is that you're doing. So I say all that to say that I think a lot of times people get so sold on it, like they get so tied to the idea that they miss that the real thing that they want is the impact that the idea has. And so it's like, if you're so tied to the idea, it might be that you're not far off from having that impact. It's just about tweaking, and that's so you kind of have to go back to that why.
Yeah, that's great. The pivot, like that's a like that's the what those cliche terms are. The marketing gurus and the business books people understanding the pivot, but it really is essential. So that's kind of that's a round that I think I'm a brush up on, but I like it. So the last section of this interview is the future. I'm a big proponent of future, and I know, especially in an industry where competition is crazy, I always want to ask our guests a few questions. So, in 2016, if you can kind of share a little bit, give us a taste. What's next for you?
Yeah, 2016 is a big year for me. I'm really building out my team right now. That's major. Potentially launching a few new products, but I'm really trying to get it right with building out my team. And so, I always feel like, I tell people, you have the right team around you, like the sky is the limit. So 2016 is all about, my crew, like who is that crew, and building it out and developing that. And then, towards the end of it, some new and exciting things should be coming out. And I think it's only up from here.
I love it. And I want to ask you a quick question too about the future after 2016 because I was interested in you said in your intro talked about real estate, business development, and all those other things. So can you kind of give us a tab at like what it's all about? Because I'm thinking, because in my head I know you're way bigger than just hair. Your personality, your interest, your creativity, and I know you don't want to gotta get put in that box. So I know if you can kind of just pontificate a little bit about some of those outside interests and maybe in the future how you maybe can leverage.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I have a huge interest in tech. I have a huge interest in real estate. One of the things that I do on the side, like literally just for fun, because I love it that much, is I shadow a real estate developer here in DC, and I kind of just like get to be a part of like some of his projects. And so I watch them go from concept, from purchase of land, all the way through development. And the big thing is that I really have like a deep like for like modern architecture and design. And so everything, like if you come into my house or anything that I create, I always make sure it has to look like, I'm very big on aesthetic. And so the real estate market, or if anything, the contemporary real estate market is a market that I absolutely love, just because it constantly excites me and it constantly inspires me. And so, down the road, there's room for me to diversify what I'm doing. There's room to somehow connect them. I think, I'm all about building experiences, and I came from the retail beauty background when I was at Carol's Daughter, and if I can break back into the retail beauty background, I would love that. But this time around, I would want to be able to create, a really, really modern, clean experience for people. So I think my love and my passion for real estate, combined with my passion for beauty and business, will really show itself eventually.
Yeah, man, I think that's really key too. Because I mean, right now you're thriving. I know you have 4 or 5 year plans with your business right now, but you're already thinking, okay, in the future, this is something on the radar. So you're not just all in right here. You're already thinking about those next steps. So I definitely I like how you put it in your bio and whatnot. And I think that's really critical for all our entrepreneurs, especially the ones that are successful in their lane right now, to kind of always in the back of your head thinking about not an exit plan, but things you can add on and diversify, kind of like what Apple has done, and all these other big companies that have a product that goes extremely well, but then they add on the services, but also at the core of it all is they add on stuff that's necessary. So they're not just adding random product, but they add on stuff that's necessary and that adds value. Because I think the biggest thing I took out of the what would you do is you said you're looking for problems. Like that's a lot of entrepreneurs, they fail because their service is not really solving a problem. And
Yeah.
I think with your heat-free hair movement, I think that's the critical thing is it urgently solved a problem in the hair care industry. That's why it's been able in less than 4 or 5 years, 4 years,
3 years,
yeah,
3 to 4 years.
3 to 4 years to really take off, because it clearly identified a problem and clearly identified how their business solved the problem. So yeah, that's huge. And the last question in this round is, when it's all said and done, how do you want to be remembered?
Oh man, I really want to be remembered as someone who was innovative. I want to be remembered as someone who cared about women, who cared about making an impact on this world, and someone who was and willing to share their story in the hopes of being able to bring up other people through their own struggles and their own trials to be able to realize their own dreams. So yeah, I think that's I think that's, or someone who really was an awesome just friend and family member and stuff like that also as well.
I got you, man. A last question. I always ask my guests, and I think everybody loves this question. So, knowing what you know now, what would you tell yourself 5 years ago?
I would tell myself, just wait. I would tell myself, just wait. Because there were many times 5 years ago where I was so anxious. I was so distraught. I had about $130,000 worth of student loan debt. I, was just out of that relationship. I, was stressed out. I was kind of like, my weight was fluctuating. Like, I was not in a good space. And even though I was working through all of that, it was hard for me to see where I was going, because I felt so crappy that where I am now was not necessarily on my radar screen. It was just some far out destination that I know it's going to eventually come, but it didn't seem attainable within, a couple of years. And so I think I would have just told myself, just wait, you're good. And I think that would have brought a little bit of calm to my life at that time. But at the same time, I am thankful for the chaos, because I think the chaos was really a time period of reflection, and it really propelled me to where I am now. So I don't regret any of it.
Amen. 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 So, as we transition into the last round, the most exciting round, the culture change round, where I ask a series of 5 questions and get 5 rapid reply answers. Are you ready?
Yep.
Cool. What is the best piece of advice that you've ever received?
Don't take constructive criticism from people who never constructed anything. Boom.
Boom. What is one of your personal habits that you can attribute to your success?
Positive thinking and dream building.
What is your favorite book and why?
Right now, The Miracle Morning, because that thing has been helping me getting my days started right.
Who's the author?
Hal Elrod.
However, I gotta get that. What inspires you and keeps you motivated?
Seeing impact, honestly, seeing the impact that I'm able to create is what keeps me motivated. And creating impact has always been what's inspired me.
And if you were the president of the United States, what would be the first thing you would do?
After I finish my little dance, I would, you know what? I would get an advisory board of like young startup company owners and just like have them as part of my team, like a separate team from at the house, whatever. It would just be like my my advisory team that keeps me hot. And the reason why I say that is just because I think in order to be an entrepreneur, especially of a startup company in this day and age, there's a level of sharpness and innovative thinking and outside the box thinking that you have to have. And I think that we're solving problems on a consistent basis, and we're solving problems that are inherently changing the world.
Mhm.
And I think that if the president had a team of young owners, business owners that are solving problems that are changing the world in their respective industries as part of my team as president,
Mhm.
I feel like that would just be a great like conglomerate of people to constantly refer to about world issues. Yeah.
Or how to solve. Yeah. Oh my goodness, you putting out a plug already. Donald Trump
Yeah.
or Hillary Clinton.
No, no.
Hey, you never know who's gonna win, but whoever's gonna win, definitely make sure you hit up Ngozi Opara to kind of get that board rocking because that's a great idea. So I have one last question, and before I get to it, I would be remiss if I didn't ask you a question because I think you signify, you are defined black girl magic, and I just want to ask for you to speak briefly about confidence because I think you've always exuded such confidence and grace from your time at A&T, from your time now, and just in general. And I know in our culture, specifically in our African American women, sometimes either the confidence meter is gauged on a lot of aesthetic values. And I just wanted you to kind of speak just your general thoughts on how anybody that's listening, male or female, could really assess their confidence and really grow it.
Yeah, assess your confidence. I think it starts with success builds confidence.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that for me, the inner confidence came from me kind of writing out what I want or who I want to be, whether it's through affirmations or me through like dream building visualizations, and just kind of like consistently doing that. So that consistency of like focusing on those things that you want to become, it's like somehow, some way, subconsciously, it builds this inner belief that you can have that because you're just positive, you're reinforcing it over and over and over again. And so that's a more of internal confidence. But I think as confidence overall as it relates to business, or just growth or success, I would say that you should have big goals, but focus on immediate goals.
Mm.
So immediate goals are goals that you can accomplish, and you believe it without a shadow of a doubt. Those are the ones that, and if they excite you, those are the ones to focus on because those are the ones that are transmitting a positive emotion and energy, but then it's also something that you think that you can have. And so because you believe that you can have it, those are the ones that are really going to come into your life at fast speed. And so once you're able to obtain those goals, then you now gain confidence in yourself. Like, well, if I was able to do that, then
Mm-hmm.
I can do this. And then you
Uh-huh.
just start scaling. And so I always say that, like, as I look back in my life, as everything that has happened to me to get me to where I am today, literally every position before I was a CEO, every position I had, I needed all of those experiences for where I am now. And during those moments, I didn't understand why I got those positions or what I was doing with them. But it's like, okay, sensei, it all makes sense in the end. I see it. This is that Karate Kid, the end justifies the means kind of thing. So I think that the confidence, the success, the little successes I had along the way were literally just like a blink, like a little, almost like a teaser of what I was going to experience later. And I personally, I believe that what I'm doing now is a teaser for something bigger. I just can't focus on that bigger because it's not on my radar screen. So I'm just focusing on what I believe in for this next level.
Amen. That was great. And our final last question is because I call myself the culture change agent, and everybody that I bring on this show is a culture change agent. So if you could change one thing about society, most specifically our African American culture, what would it be and why?
I would change how we view each other, honestly. I think that, and it's not to say that other cultures don't have these same issues, but because I am, African American, I guess I can speak for our demographic. I think that there's this level of like competition or crabs in the barrel, or just like kind of like, and I'm not going to call us all conniving because we're not that, but there's this, it's like there's this inadequacy. It's almost like this feeling of inadequacy, and in order to feel adequate, someone else has to be brought down, that I've experienced primarily in the African American community. And it's sad to me because someone else's struggle doesn't make you shine more, or your shine doesn't dim someone else's light. And so I think that a lot of people they miss it. A lot of people miss it with that. And it's funny, we always joke around about how Jewish people stick together, or some people stick together, whatever. But it's true. I think that there is strength in numbers, and there's strength in supporting each other. And yeah, I would change that, and I would remove ulterior motives, because I think what prevents people from wanting to collaborate or work with people or really build with each other is the fear that other people have ulterior motives. And sadly, a lot of them do. So, it's just one of those things where you find yourself just kind of like sticking to yourself, becoming a little bit of a loner, or just having a very close-knit group of friends. And it doesn't have to be that way.
Boom. Amen. So before we go, one, where can everybody find more information about you, more information about Heat Free Hair? Where can everybody find y'all at online in the social media space?
Yeah, so Heat Free Hair, we are online at heatfreehair.com. Then I'm Ngozi, Ngozi, The stylist on Instagram. I'm Ngozi Opara on Facebook. Heat Free Hair Movement on Facebook. Heat Free Hair Movement on Twitter. So you can kind of get to our website, heatfreehair.com, and it'll just like redirect you to everywhere that we are.
Amen. So from the bottom of my heart, and for all our audience, and that had a chance to have an incredible interview to start off season 2, I just want to say thank you for your time.
Thank you. Absolutely. It's been great. Thank you so much.
And that's a wrap. Season 2. Episode 1 was phenomenal. Thank you, Ngozi Opara, CEO of Heat Free Hair, for dropping bombs. Thank you for listening, for tuning in. And like I said, if you want to support the show financially, you can just go at GregEHill.com/MT Podcast. Once again, it is GregEHill.com/MT Podcast. And there's a lot of great rewards and great things you get for making that financial commitment, as well as you want to order a copy of my book, second copy, and get a discount and a free invite to a webinar. Go to GregEHill.com/podcast book. Thank you so much for your support. And like we always do, it ain't nothing changed but the numbers in the range. I done grew up though. I had to rap. Young Buck, shout out to Tennessee Cashville. But thank you. And like we did last season, we're going to do it like this. I need you to do one thing.